Hey, good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Today I'll be taking a look at one of my favorite characters from any manga or anime. I am Jerrel. I previously thought I was a normal human being, but it turned out I was actually a Shinigami. And it turns out that I have the powers of a Soul Reaper, which is pretty cool. Sakusei suru Tokibi. And that is interesting because this is not my normal Zanpakuto. This just turned into a little Zangetsu, which is new to me. That doesn't normally happen, but I guess it's another one of my new powers, which is normal. That keeps happening for some reason. And it turns out I'm not just a Shinigami. Apparently, I'm also a Vizard because I have one of these. So it turns out I have one of these things, which is pretty neat. Kind of nice having a hollow mask, except for the fact that there's a voice in my head that keeps telling me to make video games faster. I've learned to live with it. I thought that was going to be the end of it. No more new powers, but it turns out I'm also part Fullbring, which is, I mean, what do you expect? So anyway, I guess I can just show you my Fullbring sloppy stylus. And whoop-dee-doo, what do you know, another sword, cool, I needed another sword, I didn't already have one of those. Oh wait, I did. Anyway, that's the end of it. Oh, no it's not, because apparently I'm also part Quincy, which is pretty weird, but it's kind of convenient because then I can manifest one of these. So, cool, I can manifest a bow whenever I want, which is honestly not that useful these days, so cool to have all of these neat powers that don't necessarily seem to line up or have been foreshadowed in any way, but that's no big deal. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the character analysis here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this hollow mask now, as the voice inside my head just won't shut up, and now it's screaming for Cheetos and Mountain Dew. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on this character analysis. I'm first going to take a look at Ichigo's most iconic form. This is basically his second form that he gains, but what I really like about this form is how simple and effective it is. The character of Ichigo is really a character about dualities, and having such strong usage of black and white shows what mastery the artist has over understanding visual expression. This is so fantastic. Generally, having designs that are just all black are not great, but you can see not just through this art, but any art that you see with Bleach, there is a strong understanding of how the shape of the fabric helps communicate the character as well, their posing, their form. So you'll see that this fabric and material actually catches light quite strongly. You have this free-flowing aspect to the material that's so interesting. The characters are they're often posed in such interesting dynamic ways that allows the clothes to contribute to such an interesting visual, eye-catching posing. You'll see quite an interesting balance here. What I really like about the sandals that we see, the footwear, is actually it matches the mid-tones of the skin and the hair. And this is generally true for any of the characters in Bleach that we see that use those. We have our dark for the majority of the character, and the lights, which are the garments underneath the shuhakusho. This allows the characters to look so interesting. It's not just this dark black material and then the character's skin. You see the light of the character there. So that is the lightest dynamic, that is the darkest dynamic. And it's so interesting that they meet directly. And then of course the socks there, or I'm not sure if there's a different word for that. They're not, I mean, there'd be a Japanese word for that footwear. I don't know it off the top of my head, but again, that is the light material, the darkest material, and it just works so well. You have the sash here that flows freely as well. So interesting, so effective and simple, and it's excellent. And of course, you have this red, I would say it's sort of a chain. His first design was leather, and it had a similar color tone, but it's so great because it breaks up the monotony of just having a black upper body garment, and it just adds that bit of interest. And again, the tone of that actually is quite similar to the hair, so there is tonal cohesion there. Let's just, oh, it's such a cool design, so great, so simple. Let's go ahead and have a look at his Bankai form, which again is quite a simple design. as well, but it takes this sort of free-flowing jaggedness of his first form and it makes things more streamlined. And because this form is faster and more sleek, this design visually expresses that. I absolutely adore the use of the highlights here. So you have the light color of the white there, and there's a sense of two arrows just pointing down towards the center of the character that brings visual balance. So if you start looking over here, just the flow of his garments will bring you in up towards the top here, and you just sort of focused around this area in terms of visual focus. So great. The sash you see has become smaller. He has such a more focused look, and it's so interesting that now the Shuhakusho it's different from every other Shuhakusho that we see, especially from the other Shinigami, because it lacks internal logic and how it should work. You know, the Shuhakusho all have this here. That's internal logic that shows that, okay, you sort of bring the clothing together and then you tie them together, and this lacks that internal logic, and I absolutely love that detail, because Ichigo as a character is a character who does not make sense to the characters in the world of Bleach. They kind of say, well, what is he? He's a human, he's a Shinigami, he shouldn't be able to do these things, he shouldn't be these things, but he is. And I love that design, that this Shuhakusho, that it lacks the universal internal logic, is spitting in the face of the Shinigami in a little bit. And it's such a cool design. It's so streamlined, so sleek, very well done, and it obviously makes him look significantly faster. What a cool design. Basically, he uses those forms for the vast majority of the story. What we see next after that is his full bring. And the full bring suit is the exact opposite. I'm not sure if the right word to use here would be antithesis, but that certainly sounds very cool. It's also a name of a power in Bleach, but I'm going to say this is the exact opposite. If we compare this, it has inverted basically the blacks and the whites in terms, or the darks and the lights in terms of the tonal values, and we see an overwhelming expression of white, of the lighter tones, and then a tone down of the darks. And instead of this free-flowing, loose-fitting clothing that we see here, it's form-fitting and tight. You have a look of armor. So instead of this soft fabric, we have something that looks hard and rigid. And it's so interesting. I believe the intention of this design was to say that this is different. These are different powers. It has different functionality. The sword takes the opposite approach. Instead of having this giant blade, it's actually something quite small and focused. And I just adore that. I really respect that this is just the exact opposite to his Shinigami powers. I think he only got to use this for about 10 seconds. I would have liked to see more of it. Then we see after he regains his Shinigami powers, and he loses his full bring, but then he kind of gets his full bring powers back and they fuse with his Shinigami power. I think that's what happens. It's a little muddled towards the end of the story. But we almost see like a sort of an X, a motif of an X here, and crosses. You see a cross there, an X in that sort of design. I actually like that this kind of looks like hollow eyes here. We have this sort of skeletal looking armor. I like that is represented here. It's something that's really cool. It's messy and sloppy. You have the X there. It's worse. I think this is a worse design, but it looks so cool that I do not care. So this is a situation where being a little worse is okay because it just looks so cool. This is a significantly less focused design, and I'm not sure where Tite Kubo, the artist, I'm not sure where his headspace was towards the end of the series. I know that he had a strange relationship with the publisher, but I still I really love the use of the trim here, having the multiple layers of the garment. So you have the outer layer of the Shuhakusho, and then you have the white layer underneath that, showing underneath, and then I just adore this red. That's something I forgot to point out on his Bankai, is having the red layer on the inside is so excellent, because again, these characters are posed in interesting ways, and we see that looks it's so cool when you see his material and fabric flowing while he's performing cool attacks. We see that return here. These materials generally they tend to stay together, but I really like that in this they can sort of they seem to be able to move a bit more independently and freely. And lastly, this is a form that we don't get to see. I think we only get a couple panels. This is the worst. This is absolutely the worst of Ichigo's design because it's so sloppy. And this is where the internal logic utterly falls apart here, because it feels like it was part of his shuhakusho, and then he's sort of removed it, and then it's sort of hanging down from the belt. But it ends up looking like when you take your sweater or your jacket and you tie the sleeves around your waist because you don't want to wear it anymore. And it ends up looking like that. You have these black stripes here that they don't necessarily help us understand anything about the design. We don't know what that is saying. The internal logic behind these as well, it's a little confusing because it seems to drape down, but then it appears to be a rigid, hard material. And then you have sort of a tightening of the shuhakusho here in the middle. So and then you have these red scales here, which is nothing. There has been absolutely no visual language in Bleach throughout any of the story or the lore. There's absolutely no visual language that connects to these turtle shells. So I don't know why Ichigo is wearing turtle shells on his shoulder and hip, but that is a design choice that I will respect because I admire Tite Kubo. He's absolutely fantastic. I read Bleach all throughout growing up, so I'm such a huge fan of that. He has wristbands now, which is interesting, but I just feel like they don't work because in the logic of the Shinigami powers, no one else has anything that looks like that. Even in if you relate it to his full bring power, that visually doesn't relate to anything in his full bring power. You could say, oh, maybe they're Quincy related. Well, Quincy things tend to be white, and nobody has anything that looks like that. So he's got these 80s sweatbands on his wrist that they don't say anything. They don't relate to any of the lore, any of the story. So I hate to say it. I mean, I absolutely admire and love Bleach. I would say this is the worst character design in any of the Bleach designs, and which is insane because all of the designs for all of the other characters are top tier, excellent, gorgeous. So I'm not sure what happened here, but you know what? It's kind of cool. It is really bad, but it's kind of cool. And I would like to see more of it. I would like to see Ichigo fighting with this form more. I want to see his movement and his body posing with this stuff. And actually I like it a little less now. That I'm not sure if it's just this official art with the coloring, but it's got this sort of off eggshell, like a spoiled eggshell. So you have that white fabric underneath, and then you have the eggshell, which is okay. I don't really... Yeah, I don't... Oof. Wow, that was a decision. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you had fun. It's October, so I hope you'll all watch some cool, spooky movies and enjoy some horror games. Let me know if there's any other characters you would like me to take a look at. I'm a massive Bleach fan, huge Bleach fan, and this was so much fun taking a look at a character that I really enjoy. Hey, if you're interested in some of my games, please feel free to check out Clasher Ball right now. It is on the Nintendo Switch eShop. It's an action puzzle game. This is my homage, this is my love letter to arcade and just weird, quirky games from the early 2000s where developers were just experimental and trying fun, crazy ideas. I wanted to try something wild with this. You can grab that on the Nintendo Switch eShop now. I am bringing that to Steam very soon. And there is also a version for the PS Vita. You can play that for free. It's the full version of the game. It's available on the PS Vita. You can grab that from my itch.io. Totally free for everyone, so you can play Clasher Ball on the PS Vita. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great October. I hope my favorite YouTube channels start their October content now because I love that stuff. Okay, take care, everyone. I'll see you around.